Kenyon, I see your note taker. I'm not sure if you're here. Kenyon's note taker's here. My note taker's here. If you guys know about this AI tool that will take notes on these calls, it's really cool. It saves a ton of time if you do a lot of these, or if you get into the habit of doing these calls, and it's free. I mean, there's the upsell to so it'll only do for a certain amount of time. But can everybody hear me okay? Kenyon's note taker's here. Kenyon's not here. Because the note taker will just automatically start like mine did. Well, all right, I'll give this a couple minutes, guys. Get everybody in here. If you don't feel comfortable asking questions for some reason, I mean it's a grad program, so it kind of surprises me. If you want to put it in the chat, and I'll ask the question if you have a question for our speakers, but probably a good habit to be able to speak on these things. And also for your final projects, I'll get more information to you. But if you are going to be doing a video, I would suggest you get that thing. I want to share that with my advisory, some of my advisory board guys who will be reviewing the final projects. But I'll send more information in an email later this week. We need Kenyon. We have his note taker. We need Kenyon. All right. Let's see. All right. So, any questions for me while we wait for Kenyon? You are one quiet group. That's good at least because gives everybody a chance to get in here. All right. Well, I guess we are in waiting mode for Kenyon. He's out west. Hopefully he turned his clock back this week. Um, let's see, Marquez's number. Very surprised. No, to you to myself. All right. So while we wait, and I don't know if this is going to happen, his obviously his it's on his calendar because his note taker has showed. Maybe something happened. You never know. I want to ask you guys. One of the questions I had for him was, do we have any? How many NFL fans do we have here? How many people watch NFL pretty much every week? All right. So if you guys obviously, do you think that the proliferation of all these streaming services and whatnot are, I mean, long term, is it a hindrance? Is it oversaturation of the sport? I have my own opinion, but I'd like to hear yours. Anybody?
I think it can be confusing at times.
Good. Well, how so? Like finding
Like,
where the game is?
yeah, if you like get home Thursday night after work or something and you got to get it turn the game on real quick, you're like scrambling to see where like how to get on Amazon Prime or how to get it on wherever platform it's on, and then Monday's on a different stream and Sunday's on a different. You can't really buy one subscription to watch all the games like you could with like an NHL TV or something like that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joseph. And I think the thing for me is, and I for years have said, like, and I watch a lot of college football also. In college football, actually, there was only one team in major professional sports or college that had every single game televised nationally. Does anybody know what that team was or who that team was?
Notre Dame, correct?
Very good, yeah. Notre Dame, and but now they can't say that because they're putting their games on Paramount, which is an NBC product, but it's not the same. So when I watch college TV, I don't know about you guys, I flip around from game to game to game to game, and I because I like to, so I'll pick the best games, but I'll zone in, especially towards the end on the best games. But I even if Notre Dame is on and I do have that service, I'm not going to go. I hate the fact that I have to go change the input, my TV to go to the streaming service to get that one particular game. So I think it's a detriment myself. But obviously these guys are going to follow the money. Um, Another question I have for you, if you do follow the NFL, I mean, is the NFL right now a good product to you? And I just ask, I mean, no, not take your fandom out of it. I mean, is it really a solid product?
I would say it's not as great of a product as it was. Like almost tying it into your first question too. Like I grew up in a DirecTV house simply because of Sunday Ticket. There was no other
Yeah.
rationale to it. It was we have DirecTV because of Sunday Ticket. And that was like the most amazing fan watching experience that existed to me. Like it was almost better than going to the games. Like because there's TV timeout and I could either flip to another game or I could just be on red zone or even just go make a sandwich quick or whatever it was. It was like the perfect. It felt like they had the perfect product for a long time, and then whether it's because of what Joey was kind of talking about, where it's harder to find some of the games now, and it's just not as simple as it was, or is the fact that like they've just overcomplicated it, trying to make football. I mean, I don't know how you could possibly make football safe and not a violent sport, and they fight that battle, and it makes it hard, and then the whole catch thing. What's a catch and what's not a catch? I was ranting to Joey for 2 hours last night about what's a catch and what's not a catch. So I don't understand that. But I mean, I still think it's interesting that the NFL is basically flexing its muscles at us. It feels like with the way they're making it so hard for us to watch every game, and I'm still doing everything I can to watch every game. Right? Like they it really shows the NFL's king. Like if another sport that we all watch tried doing this, I think we'd all be a lot quicker to just be like, yeah, I'll watch something else. But we're clicking around trying to figure out what streaming service is on every Thursday. It's kind of
Yeah.
cool and interesting in that way.
I mean, Jack, I totally agree with you. I feel like they've taken their popularity and they're using it against the people who
A
made it
hundred
popular.
percent. A
Yeah.
hundred percent.
It's like, okay, yeah, but sometimes the tide will turn. I mean, and people, especially if it's not as good a product because obviously you have more teams with injuries and whatnot. You're watching some pretty watered down football, in my opinion. Yeah, you have some really good teams and you have some teams that are, decent, but then you have some really just terrible games and just not interesting. And it's really hard for somebody if somebody like me loses interest in football. I mean, because I grew up in a football house. My dad played for a legendary coach. I played in college. It was, so when you start to lose people like me, I'm just wondering, obviously you guys are younger, how you feel. And then you're right. If it was another sport, if it were, I mean, hockey, God forbid, because I love watching hockey. I mean, hockey could never do that. Hockey could never say we're going to take our product and hide on you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So. Yeah, so it's very interesting. Kenyon's coming in. We'll get his opinion too, obviously, but let's get him loaded up here first, and then we'll go from there. But no, it's good. Thank you for sharing that information. I feel the same way too about it. But Kenyon, are you with us?
Okay, now just find me about $10 for this lateness.
Oh, 10.
It wasn't my fault. Okay. I was dealing with y'all compadres in the sports industry.
Yeah. Oh, I got you. Okay. Well, you can tell us
Uh,
some stories then. So, Kenyon, well, listen, thanks for doing this. I understand these things happen. We're all very patient. We had a brief discussion. I was going to ask you this question about the oversaturation of football and then the different streaming services are they making it harder for us and all that stuff. So, listen, it's a brave new world. We know that. But all right, so let's take a deep breath. Say thank you. Everybody greet my friend Kenyon Rasheed. He's a former NFL player with the Giants and the Jets. Kenyon, my background. Can you see my background?
I can see it.
That's for you. That's
Oh,
I use that once in a while. That's Oklahoma, Georgia. I don't know if you can see the other side. That's the Rose Bowl, I think.
oh my
That's
goodness.
not. That's a little
It's
after
been a
your
it's been
time
a
zone.
it's been a rough football year for me.
I understand.
So between Oklahoma, the Giants, and the Jets, it's been a little roughy.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. So, all right. So, Mr. Rasheed, you are obviously well, let's start. You tell the story instead of me telling the story. Your football career, and then obviously just an unbelievable post-football career with your entrepreneurial bent and your businesses and your all that stuff. So, Why don't you give the class? These are younger group, but they're master's degree students, and there seem to be a lot
Okay.
of football fans here. So
Well, first of all, I'm apologize for all of the things that I tell you today about what's going on in the sports industry. But first of all, thank you for having me, Dave.
thanks, Kenyon.
Appreciate it, and thank you guys for listening to this today. But I guess the one thing I would tell you guys is that what I do is the sports industry runs by what I call a set of rules and methodologies that have been in place for 30 to 40 years that are now changing based upon technology, based upon media, based upon where we're going with gambling and all of these different avenues. And so it's created a tremendous opportunity for growth in areas that didn't previously exist. And unfortunately for you guys, you don't see a lot of those areas unless you really start to look at the industry holistically. And by that, follow the dollar. Doesn't matter whether it's professional sports, college sports, follow the dollar. And so my background is literally from the ground up. Because everything revolves around an athlete. I was one. So when I played, I really tried to make sure that I paid attention to the business around me, how money was made, how things were decided, and started to collect data. And then when I retired, I started to look at all of the industries that intersect with sports, not just sports itself, but everything that connects. Like when you go to a game, what's the first thing you do when you go to a game? I got to buy a ticket. Well, who's the ticket company? Who's running the payment for the ticketing? How you're buying the jersey? What happens when you get to the stadium? Who is buying the suites in the stadium? And all of the things in between of that, because that was who paid our salary. That's how owners were able to pay us. And so by understanding these business models, I started to say, well, okay, how can I play in the middle of all of this with the information that I have? And was able to get other athletes to join me. And we created a number of different ventures. And our more recent one is based around college sports and what's happening there, because we're seeing a shift in a business model in college sports. And that is due to, in the last 5 years, we have had more turmoil and upside down in college sports with NIL and realignment and this transfer portal, which is open free agency. And so what this has caused is an industry on the other side from a school perspective who did business a certain way to change, but they don't really have all of the tools needed to change today. So what we created with Edge 3 was a way in the middle using AI and open intelligence and a little bit of sprinkle of athletes, start to understand some processes and software that we could put together that would allow them to start to make decisions in, let's say, less risk adverse fashion. And we've been able to secure a couple schools are doing this. We've recruited athletes and have worked with them in the recruiting space. And so this is about 2 years of information and kind of intelligence back from the market that enabled us to build the software. And then my business partners are Warren Sapp, who's coaching at Colorado, Gary Payton, Hall of Famer, Horace Grant, five-time NBA champ, and Brian Jones, who y'all see on CBS with the white beard every Saturday. It was my main business partner. So, again, one of the advantages of kind of doing this is I've never left this industry. So, Dave, I hope that's a good intro to tell you where I'm sitting right now, but
Yeah.
real interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And the white beard comment, I don't know, man. See, if I grew my beard out, it would be all gray. So
I said I went on Halloween. I went as Brian Jones, and so got the
that's good.
leftovers.
All right. So if you guys don't know who Brian Jones is, look him up, former NFL player. So if that's quite a group that you're involved with, obviously all great former professional athletes and but you have children about the age. How old are your kid? You have a son, I know that.
Yeah. So my my son is 27. So
Yeah.
he played at Cal Poly. He's
Okay.
currently working with a company called Allied, which is connected to sports in a different way through
Yeah.
security.
Yeah.
And then my middle son played at UCSD, played basketball, and he's currently doing some work for Edge 3 in sports and information and data gathering. And then my daughter, who played soccer at Oregon State, just got a job graduated last in March and just took a job with the Big Ten. She's
Oh,
doing a
wow.
fellowship at the University of Oregon. And so again, and what it really taught me is all three of my kids who I would have loved to play professional sports. I put enough time and money and effort and
Mm.
training and everything, but I also understood the baseline.
Yeah.
And the baseline allowed me to instill in them things that I see them succeed at today. Because everybody wants to play sports. Everybody's dream is to work in sports.
Yeah.
But you really have to understand how sports works to actually start to develop a strategy and a plan to get to where you want to be. And again, my kids, I believe, had an advantage because this is all they've ever been around.
Yeah.
So one of the things we were trying to do with Edge is what if we could give that if you didn't have an NFL player in your household or somebody connected to a team or
Yeah.
like could I join a network that could perhaps help me guide me in those areas? And I'm currently working on a venture that hopefully I'll announce in January that is going to be a major piece of that, and Edge will be a part of it, but
I
it will
got you.
focus more on a holistic business around college sports.
Very nice, very nice. I have a question about the NIL, but guys, if you have a question, please, either put it in the chat or, please feel free to ask. Better to have questions than to go back after and wonder, what he thought. Kenyon, um, obviously, as you said, college sports, I mean, is just a different animal now. I mean, it just is. The transfer portal, and they have to fix that because yes, it's good that a kid, if he's unhappy or I always felt like going way back that if a coach left the school, whether it's football, basketball, whatever it is, and that was the coach that recruited the athlete, then that athlete should just get a free card. You want to stay or you want to go? That they should be able to say, this is not the person who recruited me. This is not the person that I wanted to play for. I should be able to go to another school. This is a bit outside of that because what we're seeing is guys and women, I guess too, who are transferring year after year after. I don't even know how they get an education with all with their credits and stuff. They're just going.
Education. See, and this is what I'm saying. Y'all really y'all getting the master class today. I'm gonna tell you guys why y'all getting the because go check what I am telling you. Okay. Don't nobody care about education no more. This is a professional model in the two
Yeah.
revenue sports of football and basketball. What you're gonna see in the next 2 years is whoever is running the money in college football set a separate league.
Right.
It will operate similar to the NFL, meaning you will have a governing body that governs all the Power Five schools. Now, I want you to look at where the money is going into college football right now. It is called the college football playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, we had 4 teams. But if I want to be like the NCAA tournament and have parity where people are betting and there's more money and excitement and opportunity to win, I might extend it to 14 teams or 24 or 32.
Yeah.
And now I've created a unique business that operates that is sustainable with enough revenue to pay the players, which is what we're doing. This is a pay to play model we are moving to. Go look at the last legislation that was passed. It allows schools now to pay the players, which means you're going to have a salary cap. Forget NIL.
Yeah.
NIL sits over here right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the pay to play. NIL is what we did in the NFL. It's called marketing. It's who is the most marketable person. generally that's going to be the players that are doing the best in the NFL, right? So they will only get the money on the NIL side, but the schools will still have to pay the players. And if I got a $20 million salary cap, but now I've got to now scout every NCAA team and player that's out there every year while also scouting high school. And I've only got 5 people, 20 people, how many ever people to do it. You're going to need technology. So what we've done is built the way that you can predict certain transfers. So I can start to plan and create software that allows me now to know in those 48-hour windows that I have to make these decisions, who should I most likely pick? And by the way, I know it doesn't have anything to do with my degree, because I can make $1 million to $2 million before I graduate as a football player or as a basketball player now. So as much as I would want education, that I believe education is a part of it, the model right now is moving to a professional model. So look at the NBA, look at the NFL, and what they do, college football and the college sports world will continue to do.
Yeah, I hold on one second. Just questions for Kenyon.
And if y'all don't have questions, y'all don't want to work in sports.
I have a question. What would you say is like the biggest challenge with players, gambling so easily accessible? How do you make sure that, there's a fine line between, not to do this and that, they make sure that they don't get in trouble because more and more suspensions have been happening with it.
So I think that is I think that is a heck of a question. And I think it's another area that needs to be explored. Because when I've been on recruiting trips with kids that are in a 15 to 16-year-old, they are playing prop bets. They don't see it as gambling right now, but it is gambling, and they're waging money. And I can guarantee you there are players out there that are not supposed to do this, trying to do it, because that's what they grew up with. So the question that the league's got is, if I'm taking gambling money, and by the way, making a lot of money on gambling money, and the data around gambling, what makes me think I can keep everybody from gambling if I'm taking money for it? Because the first time you actually look at it, there's going to be a court case coming soon of a player suing the league for suspending them for gambling when they take money from the same company that they took money or gambling for. So they're a league sponsor. So your question is a great question to track, because we don't know. This is the first time in history that the NFL and that these companies have said, these leagues, yeah, it's okay to gamble. So I would watch what's happening legally around that very closely in the next probably 2 to 3 years. That's a great question.
Good job. Thank you for that answer. Anybody else?
I have a question also.
Good.
To kind of like to touch on what Jackson asked also, with the amount of money all these young athletes are getting in this college age, do you also believe that there should be not a I'm an advocate for college athletes getting paid. I think it's a good idea, but do you think there's a cap that should be put because of gambling and how they're not getting compensating on schools putting their image on a bet, like, and not getting compensated for that?
I think that's, first of all, that's another good question, is what technically is NIL, right? So getting their name and image and likeness on something, of what that constitutes. But in terms of like the gambling part of it, listen, I know as a young athlete, when I got money and never had money, like, you can tell me whatever. I mean, we gonna spend the money. I'm trying to keep it real with everybody to start understanding that we can all have this grand idea that We want them to do certain things with the money. But when you give a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid that's never had money, discretionary income, what am I going to do with it? Like, I'm in my 50. I know how to do with money now. You give me $225,000, I know where to put it. But when I was 18, 19, I think my mother was giving me tax advice and she didn't make any money. So how many families come from money? Because I think you would track that that's an area of concern for the NCAA. It's an area of concern for coaches. And it's an area of concern that they have to start to address by having education, by making sure that the kids are aware that, hey, these are the areas that you can put your money in, that you don't have to gamble. Or you're going to get legislation to say, yeah, you've earned the money, but we're not going to give it to you until you're 23, 24, 25, 26. So these are all options that I think could all occur based upon knowing that that's coming here in the coming years.
Kenyon, how does it affect, say, as a former player? First of all, two questions. First part, as some, and we've seen some of this already, where former players from years past are coming back in lawsuits and whatnot, saying, "Hey, if you're going to pay these guys now, I mean, there should be money, backloaded from when I played." That's part one. And part two is, I mean, if you're an athlete, if you're a lineman for Ohio State and your quarterback's making $5 million in NIL money and you're making 30 grand, I mean, how does that affect the team, kind of mentality?
Well, Dave, you
How much?
asking the questions that I asked like 5 years ago when they came up with this, because nobody seemed to think of this. But first question, what was the first question again? Just to
First
repeat that.
question is there any like reparations for people who played in years past?
Okay, so this is what's interesting about what was just passed is it's restitution.
Yes.
And so Congress passed the restitution that they can go back to 2016, compensate players for their name, image, and likeness. Yeah, but what about 2015?
Exactly.
What about 1997 and
Yeah.
1996? And this is a true story. Before this case began, this was in probably 2006, 2007. A gaming company asked me to go get college athletes, former Final Four MVPs, right? And so I was able to reach out to some. I didn't know like some of them, but then I got ahead in touch with Ed O'Bannon. And I was literally watching Ed O'Bannon commercials for the March Madness. And Ed O'Bannon was working at a car dealership.
Does everybody know who Ed O'Bannon is and why that's
if not,
significant?
write the name down, go check it.
Yep.
And what I told Ed is, how you working at a car dealership when I see you on a commercial right now with Budweiser and AT&T, and you are not getting $1? And then there was an EA case where, guess what? College football is getting paid millions of dollars for EA group licensing without giving a player $1. And all they did was didn't put your last name on the jersey, but it looked like you, ran like you, played your position, and we all played it. And we didn't get paid for that. Whereas in the NFL, when they tried to do that, they're like, you got to pay everybody. So what we're seeing is an industry who has operated with a business model and profited handsomely changed because athletes got access to information.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the internet is.
Yeah.
It also allows us to connect. We couldn't connect. I didn't know Brian Jones when we was at Texas. In fact, I hated him. But now we Instagram, we follow him. We was at the 707 camp together. All of these dudes are connected, which gives them a little bit more power in negotiating certain things that are what we are seeing the progress for today. And so that's really where I stay with a lot of this. And did I see this coming? Do I think it's going to change? No. Anybody who wants it to go back to the old model and it should be like this and this, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you the coaches and the business world and the brands have accepted the new reality. And it's just going to get worse. The companies that are streaming this, that when you said like the confusion around, the saturation around sports,
Yeah.
is exactly where it's going. So what I'll tell you is that the NFL established an NFL network. Go look at the history of this.
Mm-hmm.
After regional and teams had formed regional networks, because they realize there's more power in them creating leverage against broadcast companies. And this is what I say about a masterclass, because as a former athlete, I got a chance to sit in all of these different rooms and learn this just by sitting there and listening. But when people would see me and see the athletes that I work with, what they would want to talk about is football and, hey, what athletes are you working with?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, but there's a business operating out here.
Mm-hmm.
So we needed to understand the business. So this is what I'm kind of giving y'all the game today is go do y'all research on this and y'all start to understand, okay, so if I got access to information and I can now have access to all of this, understanding the models that exist, and I can find paths that I want to go in sports. Because I believe that those things are opening up to folks who don't necessarily have the same view that we have inside. They need outside views because now it's needed for a business to work. That's how college sports is looking at it now. And I think that's what's created this unique model.
I agree. And so if you were to say, if these were your kids in front of you, 27 or so people in this class, what would you suggest? What would your recommendations be to them as opportunities, or where they should seek, or where they should kind of focus their career path?
Data,
Mm-hmm.
analytics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, what I'll tell you is that that doesn't happen without human intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Find out what teams and leagues are doing.
Yeah.
Find out what they're looking for. And then find multiple avenues into the same thing. What I'll tell you is that there's over 3,000 technology companies trying to get into sports,
Mm-hmm.
located globally. Just type it into a Google search. And then start to understand that those companies are trying to come in and learn something that you've learned today.
Yeah.
And understand that now you connected to me through Dave. So I'm on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Go see the companies that are connected to me. Go see the individuals and the teams that are connected to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll start to understand that that is how sports works.
Contact business.
It is a network
Yeah.
contact business.
Yep.
And through this, y'all just got, honestly, like I've talked and spoke at Columbia and everything, and the kids that reach out, I'm like, hey, who can I connect you to?
Yeah.
What information do you need? So, and that's why I
Right.
come on with you, Dave. So
Well, and I
listen, Dave will
appreciate
tell
it.
you. Yeah. So I appreciate y'all having me. So
All right. So before we let you go, I'll ask if there are any more questions from the group.
I have a quick question. I'm not really sure if the best way to word this, but being that in terms of prior to playing in the NFL, it seems like there's only one real option for guys, and it's to play college football. Whereas in basketball, that's not necessarily the case. There's the G League. Guys can go play overseas. They have other options. Do you see the whole NIL movement affecting basketball any differently than it does football because of that, like the nature of that?
yeah, I think that's a great question. Again, you got to look at the two different sports. All right. NBA is a global sport. NFL controls football. NFL has a vested interest in a free minor league system called college football. They also have legislative power to make sure that you never go from high school to the NFL because of the physicality of the sport. They will continue. But if you look at some of the 17-year-old kids, like the one at Alabama, the receiver, who could be in the NFL today, the business model doesn't permit it. The NFL runs a hell of a business. NBA, you can do all of this. It's not happening in the NFL. That law has not changed. You got to be 3 years removed from your high school career to be eligible for that draft. It's been challenged, but nobody has won. So I hate to say it, but what do you think that is? Like, because you got 15-year-old tennis players now.
Yeah.
You got 18-year-olds in the NBA. How come we don't see a 18-year-old in NFL?
Hmm.
That's the NFL business. So I think it's the difference is the NBA. NBA is a little bit more global, a little bit more open.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on football in general, college and pro? I mean, I was saying before you came on that it seems NFL specifically seems a little watered down to me. The games sometimes are non-competitive or just boring.
Well, they want parity. The NFL games can be boring, but then now there's 17 of them, and you're getting them on a Sunday, on a Monday, on a Thursday. I don't know, maybe even be Saturday.
Yeah,
The NFL used to be reserved for Sunday. It was
yeah,
an event.
yeah.
What the NFL has done is watered down their own product by saturating it through
Yep.
all of these different areas. And now, because I'm not tracking teams, I'm tracking players because of fantasy and gambling. I really don't care if the team wins, as long as I win some money or my player does well. So
Yeah.
all of these changes have happened, and since I played, right? So this is why, again, being access and seeing these changes is it gives you a little unique view of how things are working.
Okay. And
I
just
have a question.
go ahead, Michael.
Do you think so? We all play fantasy football. Um, do you think fantasy football takes away from the actual game because you only focus on that player that you picked? If he's good or bad, does that take away from the whole game? Like, instead of watching the whole game from a standpoint.
Okay, that's a good question too. And what I'll say is this is just my personal opinion. I believe fantasy has changed all of this. In 1999, I introduced to the NFL a real-time play-by-play betting system. They said it too was closely resembling gambling. They would never touch it. It was really a fantasy product because it wasn't for money. It was for points and rewards. What we see today, they said they would never touch it. But one thing that I understood was it's the only way to keep people involved in a sport and watching a game that has already been determined. Meaning I'm going to stay watching the game, not because of who's going to win this team or that team, but because of the participants that are actually, I have a vested interest in playing. Now, what that does is now kids that grew up like my son, who I thought we was a Cleveland fan, and then we was Miami, and now we Lakers. And I just got confused because I had just got my Cleveland gear, I got my Heat gear, and now I gotta wear Lakers. And I was like, man, you really a LeBron fan, and you just like literally start liking the teams because he played for them. He's like, yeah. Whereas we hated teams. Like, I don't care. Your favorite player can leave. It'd be like, man, bye. Nah, I'm traveling with you now. And that's changed the way that really sports is consumed, which is why we have so much data and information and things that keep you involved in the game, post game and pre game. That's a business move that the NFL made. And I think it was smart because look at the growth of the league. When y'all see the NFL, what do y'all see? Y'all see Cancer Awareness Month, right? Domestic violence. But what I'll tell you is that more females are the ones buying NFL tickets. So I want y'all to do your research
Mm-hmm.
and then see it happening in front of you. Meaning, look at health and safety. Y'all want to know why the kickoffs have changed in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And then go look at the league that started those kickoffs. Y'all, the camera angles and things that you see that you enjoy in the NFL today, go see who started it and see if they're still around.
Mm.
That's the NFL.
Yeah. Well put. Well put. All right. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Good.
So we've talked about this like pay to play model in like other classes, and we only really talk about like football and basketball. How do you think that this will affect like women's collegiate sports?
Okay, so as personal as seeing my daughter's locker room for women's soccer and seeing Oregon State's football team and money team, and until money is put into your sport to generate revenue, those sports will become club sports. When I was going to school, women's soccer was a club sport. As much as I hated it and don't think it's right, until we find enough money, which in certain sports, Caitlin Clark, prime example. I mean, women's basketball is now a revenue producing sport. They got better sponsors now. They flying on charters. Things that they should have had to begin with, but now the money is there to pay for it. So I believe the model is going to be the revenue producing sports are going to actually move to this side. Your non-revenue sports will sit here and may be controlled by the NCAA, but there has to be a way for them to generate income. And I think they're moving in that direction, and I see more popularity. And by the way, if I was putting money into any sport right now, it would be women's sports. That's where a tremendous amount of money is being invested. So if you're looking for opportunity, look there first. Go look at the National Women's Soccer League. In fact, one of our clients is Raylan Turner. She's the number 6 pick. She now plays for Portland. But I've seen the change in women's soccer. It's like I said, and again, softball's coming. It's a big college sport. So again, I would say that women's softball will be revenue producing. Just look at the coach's salary, look at the ratings, look at all of the things that didn't exist, like say 3 to 4 years ago. And I'm sorry for giving y'all so much, but this is what happens at the end of my day. Y'all caught me at the end of my day.
You're good, man. It's much appreciated, and I think these guys appreciate it too. So, any last questions for Kenyon before we let him go enjoy his evening?
Yeah, I want to jump on what Jack said. Kind of a loaded question, but I know like you would consider some sports to definitely still be amateur at the collegiate level, like the lower paying sports, but like are we still considering Alabama's football team to be amateur athletes when all of this money is coming in and being paid towards them for them to go to Alabama to play?
Here's what I'll tell you. If you go to my LinkedIn page, you're going to see a video on there from 1992 of me being on ABC Nightline. And you're going to hear the same shit you just said right there. Sorry, my language, but
All right, it's good.
absolutely. Because it was the same model back then. This is nobody want to say nothing. My thing is, how is everybody buying jerseys with my name on it? And I got $2.50 in my account for some pizza. That's how broke we were. And my thing was, if somebody outside of this organization gives me money because I can play football, and that's really what all of this money is when I drive up and the coach, he got a free car. I don't have a car. He got a shoe deal. I'm wearing his shoe and I didn't get paid. This is how I looked at it as an athlete. And I'm just now telling you the things we talked about 30 years ago that I was saying, they just now getting to. But keep going. Why do you think these coaches are getting out the game? Why do you think Nick Saban like, man, forget this.
You're right.
You think I got to sit here and where I could talk to a backup and backup come in like he want $300,000? Not $300,000 because he's worth it, but $300,000 because the dude at another team told him he could get 300,000 or he could come there for 400. And the coaches have to then say, do I pay the dude or what is he worth? In the NFL, go right now. You can find out everybody's salary. Go to Sports Track. Sports Track will tell you the value of every position in the NFL, how every team values a position. How? Money. Edge rushers, defensive, that's who they number one paid. Got to have pressure on the quarterback. Offense, number one paid, quarterback. Y'all live in New York area, right? What if you could have told Saquon Barkley at Penn State, Saquon, you are not a running back. You Debo Samuels. You a slot back. You just play running back every now and then. You know what you just made him? $7 to $8 million. My client, Will Anderson Jr., right? We got Will while he was at Alabama, not as his agent, but as his advisor. We helped Will pick an agent. We helped him pick a financial planner, right? And Will didn't know any of this. Neither did his family.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, that's the problem that exists in college sports, is until these athletes are educated on their value, their true value, their true NIL. Because what I'd ask people is, tell me your definition. And by the way, y'all don't think I'm playing, but I'm working with athletic departments. And I'll talk to them the same way I'm talking to you guys. Define name, image, and likeness. Anybody. Well, let me help you.
They know it.
Before you can say it's to get paid for your name, image, and likeness, what I ask is, what is that? It's only what we see and what we know. So I'll give you an example. I pay athletes for name, image, and likeness right now. I get paid for my name, image, and likeness. My name, image, and likeness is more than just me giving you some social media stuff. It is, what is my value to you? So what I tell athletes is, tell me who you know. Because that's part of your name, image, and likeness. So is what we're advising schools to do is everybody that spends money on your sport, when I graduate, give me that audience. So I can start to identify, maybe I want to go into this. Oh, I see you paid for a ticket, or you bought my jersey, or you came to a game. So maybe it's not just cachet or cash. Maybe it's audience. Maybe it's information. And we're starting to collect that for athletes. When you guys go on to Brian Jones's Instagram, you'll see you'll see him taking a picture with a hoodie. All right, it's a University of Texas hoodie that we designed with a collaborator out of New York called Snow Milk. These are all the areas of college sports and sports I want y'all to think about. All right. Those hoodies are selling out at the University of Texas bookstore because we have NIL deals to help athletes go with collaborators and then give them distribution, because we understand the business models of it. So literally go look at these things, because that's where you guys are going to get the most, in my opinion, the most education. And if y'all got questions, ping me on LinkedIn and then I can try to
Yeah,
answer them for you.
that's nice of you to offer that, and they should really connect you on LinkedIn. That's on them. I would just say, and I did send, excuse me, I did send them your LinkedIn profile. So we had Gino Ariam about a week ago. Maybe you guys saw this. Say that, but let's just call it what it is. It's semi-professional athletes. You know, we're now a semi-pro, and this is a guy who's been around a long time. Obviously, a lot of success with the women's basketball team at UConn. So. It's a new world, and I think Kenyon's hit the nail on the head in many ways here. It's not going to go back, and you know what though? You have to. Why not? You know, instead of lamenting the fact that the world is changing, make it work for you.
Listen, I tell you, I don't have 2 Instagram followers. I don't like social media. Y'all not gonna find me on there posting videos and doing all that, but my kids do, and I get it. But what I try to tell athletes that are in my age is we have information about how this stuff works. That could be our most valuable asset. So to me, that is what name, image, and likeness represents. From an athlete perspective, it is me asking someone, did you like this coach or this coach? Tell me the difference.
Yeah.
How did you do this marketing deal? Tell me how that deal with Nike worked with you, Michael Jordan. Horace Grant, tell me about the group license behind The Last Dance.
Yeah.
All of those are business models and opportunities with companies that are all connected to sports.
And
I'm
asking questions is paramount, right?
Yes.
Getting
That's how I got all this information. I never once was in a conversation with anybody and didn't ask, tell me what you do and tell me how it works. Because this is the only way you guys are going to learn how the stuff works, to sit down with someone inside the industry and say, you know what, I think I can help you.
Yeah. All right, my friend. You've been with us long enough, and we appreciate your time. I do have a couple projects that I'd like to run by you outside of this, which I will get back to you on, and I think you'd be interested. Always happy to hear you. You know, you're a very bright guy, obviously, and a serial entrepreneur, and we appreciate your time. And thank you, Kenyon.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Sorry for talking so much. And I hope y'all
That's why you're here,
dealt,
brother.
y'all dealt with me, man. I appreciate it. All right,
All
y'all.
right.
Have a good one now.
Thank you. All right. All right, guys. I'll get back to you with a note in the next day or so. Probably tomorrow.
Thank you.
You got it, man.
You
Take care, ladies. Bye bye.